Hi, it's Austin from Nookal. Thanks for joining me for this video about getting started with your new Nookal account. I'm going to take you through all the features and functionality we have in order for you to get started quickly. This video is just over 30 minutes long and I've tried to pack in as much content as I can, but don't forget you can control how fast or slow I go with the playback settings below. Have a look below, there's an option to speed it up or slow it down. So let's get started. To access your account, start at login.nookal.com, enter in your company ID, your email address and a password and click the login button. This will take you to our dashboard page where you'll start to see some key insights as you add new data into your account. The information you see on this page will vary depending on the permissions and the access you have within your account. You can navigate through your account using the menu across the top of the screen. So let's take a look at the diary page. Across the top of the diary, you'll see different tabs for each location you have set up within your account. This one we have Brisbane and Melbourne, and you can toggle between them to switch depending on which location you wish to view within the diary. Usually locations are used for different physical locations, but you may decide to group practitioners together into other locations depending on how your business is set up. In the top right hand corner you can navigate between day view, week view and month view, either for all practitioners or for one specifically. As you can see here, we've got a week view for a single practitioner. As an administrator you may prefer to view the week of all practitioners at the same time. Or as a practitioner you can view your own week without any interruptions. In the top right hand corner of your diary there's a little green toggle switch. This gives you extra options and different views you can include in your diary. These are location specific views, so now these change the tabs up the top left hand corner to practitioner and classes, and we can see a practitioner's day through multiple locations. Classes tab shows all classes within your diary regardless of practitioner. This makes it easy to find a class for a client based on time instead of having to check each individual practitioner. So let's have a look at scheduling practitioners in. Piper has a schedule set up from 9 till 5 with an hour-long lunch break in the middle. So let's go and have a look at setting up one for Avery. Just click on the options button in the top right hand corner. This will bring you up the options box. This will show you a heap of options to set up and customize your own diary. Each of these options is unique to your login, so everybody can have their own custom diary setup. On the left hand side we can control the tabs of the diary and which order that each column is shown in. So we can pick up Piper and Avery, switch them around. We can also force practitioners to be shown or hidden based on their schedule. When they're set to show, they're shown regardless of their schedule. When they're set to hide, they're hidden regardless of their schedule. In automatic mode, they're shown and hidden based on whether they're scheduled on. So you see practitioners appear and disappear based on which day of the week they're scheduled on. Here I've set both providers to automatic, so we're seeing Piper but not Avery as Piper has a schedule. We go back into our options, go down in the bottom right hand corner, we can define a schedule for Avery. It's really easy, just go through, follow the prompts. We're going to add a schedule in for each day of the week from 9 till 5 PM. And as you'll see at the end, because today is Friday, this schedule begins as of today, moves forward, so any changes we lock in historically. This means you can come back at any point in time and view historical schedules. I'm just going to define a lunch break between 1:30 and 2:30. We're going to close our schedules off. And when we're back in the diary, we can now see that Avery's got a schedule set. And when we go into week view, we can see it begins on the Friday that I've set it. And as we proceed into the next week, it goes forward from there. Let's go back to today and we can add in some events to our diary. We've got 4 different types of things you can add to your diary: appointments, classes, events, and notes. Notes are like a reminder. You can use them for a callback, a follow-up. If you weren't sure when your lunch break was, you could possibly put in a temporary one with a note. You can expand the duration of any item on the diary by clicking and dragging on the bottom border, or you can click and drag to pick it up and move it to a new time altogether. Now let's look at adding events to our diary. Because Avery's new, we'll set ourselves a welcome event thing for all staff to come and welcome Avery to our clinic. We can also define a category for our event as well. This can impact occupancy, and we can also define it as to whether it includes professional development. I'll show you how to do that a little bit later. For now, we're just going to add the event to multiple practitioners' diaries. You can see our events being added to both Piper and Avery's diary, and as you move them up or down, these events are locked and linked and they'll move together in unison. Next up, let's look at adding an appointment to our diary. So we're going to start off, we're going to search for a client's name, and by searching for them we rule it out that they don't already exist in our list of clients. And when we've confirmed they're not already in the list, we'll be given the option to create them as a new client. When you're creating a client, we have a minimum of 3 pieces of information: a first name, a last name, and at least 1 phone number. Everything else you add in here is purely optional, just to make sure that we can get them booked into the diary. And you can look to input the rest of that information later via an intake form, or when you've got time in between patients to sit down and complete it. I'm going to go through now, complete as much of this information as I can, so I've got a good basis for the rest of our session. Once you've got as much information as you need, click Create Client. This will take you through the appointment creation screen. On the left hand side we have the service type, which you can change, the date and time that the client will be attending. I'm going to switch this to a third party insurance service type. That'll give us a good basis to show you referral and third party approval functionality. On the right hand side we select or create the case that relates to this appointment. The case is best considered to be the reason the client's coming in. If they return for the same treatment later, it would be under the same case. If they're coming back for a different treatment, you'd create a new case. In this particular instance, I'm going to set them up under a particular title, and this gives me the benefit of tracking how much of a particular case type the practitioner treated in our reporting. We're going to set a third party payer on this case. In this particular instance, I'm going to select from the drop down, we're going to choose the allied health insurance that I have set up as a third party payer. If you're adding a payer that you haven't already set up, that's perfectly fine. Simply type their name into the box, click the add button, it'll walk you through the process. Next, we're going to set a referrer. This doesn't have to be the doctor that may have referred this client. This can be anybody, another client. They may have found you as they're walking down the street, maybe a friend that's recommended them. This box is used to track the return on your marketing investments. Then click the Create Appointment button, and as you can see, we've now got a new appointment for Bailey. It's got a little star next to the name. That means it's the first time we've seen this client. When you click on an appointment, you'll find our appointment management window. This has information about the consultation and the client. In the top right hand corner of the window, you can toggle between a fresh view and a classic view. It's totally personal preference. Each one has the same functionality. I'm going to work with the classic view as that's my personal preference. The appointment window contains all the information about your client, case and appointment. You can mark your appointment as confirmed, arrived or did not arrive, or reset it to no status. You can also manually move an appointment, rebook an appointment, recur an appointment, view their entire list, or cancel this particular appointment. There's quick access to client details and accounts, and you can also easily access third-party details too. And to access clinical notes, simply click the button within the appointment window. Communication options include sending SMSs, emails, and forms. And lastly, you can generate an invoice for the session. So let's take a little dive into the appointment statuses. An appointment can be manually marked as confirmed or as part of your SMS reminder process. Marking an appointment as arrived will change the color of the appointment and also add the client to the arrivals list within your diary. From the arrivals list, we can set the appointment as in session. Within the appointment window, we have access to 3 different types of notes: client notes, alert notes, and appointment notes. Client notes relate to the client themselves. Alert notes are shown on all appointments for this client and are usually used to record information you may need to be aware of when they attend. Appointment notes are shown only on the appointment they're added to and may be used for things such as one-off reminders. When saved, you'll find both the alert notes and the appointment notes are shown within the appointment, with the alert notes triggering a red border and corner to grab your attention. So let's have a look at setting up a referrer and some third-party details for billing. Within the appointment window, you'll find a drop-down for the case and payer you had selected. This will bring up all the information about the case you have for that appointment. If this were a private case, you would only see the column on the left-hand side, most of which is the information we filled in when making the appointment. But because this is a third-party case, we also have the payer listed on the right-hand side where you can see referral information. And we're going to set our referrer to Dr. Davis, same as creating a payer. If they didn't exist in the list, simply enter their name and add them in. We can also set a referral date and a reference number to appear on the invoice. We can define an injury date, and then I'll say that Allied Health Insurance approved this client for 5 sessions. And lastly, I'll set an expiry date to remind myself that these sessions need to be used up by the same time next year. Then when we save the changes, all of that information is pushed back to our appointment in the diary. And now we'll see that Bailey has 5 sessions remaining for this case. And this process can apply for both public and private health. Simply set up your public health scheme as a third-party payer and attach them to the case in the same way. You can then say they have an approved number of sessions or a budget to draw from. So let's have a look at rebooking an appointment. Go into the appointment menu, click on Rebook an Appointment. The appointment window will then close, and anywhere you click will create a new appointment. You can navigate to next week or next month before putting that appointment in. I'm just going to create it underneath so I can show you our invoicing. I'm going to go back up to the first appointment, click on it, and then I'm going to select Generate Invoice. This is going to take us to our invoicing screen where we can check the item, the price, add any discounts, check the sales tax. You can also use the Add Item button to include any other items in this invoice, such as stock or inventory. I'm just going to select a piece which increases our total. We then divide the total up into each payment method used by Bailey. If this was a private consultation, Bailey may have paid us $50 cash, put $100 on a debit card, and put another $100 on a credit card. That leaves us with a fully paid off invoice, which we can then scroll to the bottom, save it, print it, or email it. But because this is a third-party invoice, Bailey doesn't need to pay anything, it needs to be sent to our third-party payer. So we're going to leave it outstanding, scroll to the bottom, and just email it straight to the third party. When we click save on the invoice, it'll return us to the diary and mark that consultation as completed. The number of remaining approved sessions has dropped to 4. This is a great way to track whether you need to renew or update any referrals. Now, sometimes you want to bundle appointments for one client into a single invoice for a third-party payer. This can be done by raising that first invoice, and when we go to raise an invoice for the second appointment, we can simply scroll to the bottom and click Add to Existing Invoice. This will present a list of the other outstanding invoices for this client related to this case and payer. We can click the Add button to attach the items from this invoice into the selected one. I'll show you how that comes together in the client's account section shortly. Let's have a look at a client profile. We can either go through the appointment itself, or we can click on the top menu, navigate through the clients button. I'm going to go through the top menu just for a bit better context. Searching by Bailey's last name brings up all possible matches which we can click on to go to their profile. The profile page contains all the same information we had when we were adding Bailey in as a new client, and we can navigate through all the different areas related to this client via that left hand side menu. The health page can be used to collect any information relating to the client's health. You can customize your extras page to collect any information that Nookal may not have a field for. In my clinic here, I want to collect a membership number and also a complimentary drink preference for our waiting room. You can add as many or as few of these fields as you like to your extras page. You can also define fields which you may decide to collect from the client as part of a form. Moving to the cases section, we can see this is the exact same page we had on the diary when we went to edit the case details. Under the document section, we find cloud storage for any files relating to the client. You can attach any type of file such as a PDF or an image. This may be for a letter or an X-ray that you have relating to this client. You'll find a new folder automatically created for each new case, and I'm going to drag and drop an X-ray into the upload box. I can then move it to the appropriate part of the foldering system by clicking and dragging. Selecting one or more files from the documents list will open a menu on the right hand side where you can view, download or email your selection. So let's go back to our left hand menu and we'll go to write some clinical notes. Because we haven't come off the diary, it's going to ask me which case we're writing clinical notes for, and then I'm going to be presented with a list of templates I have set up for my clinical notes. I'm going to select my basic SOAP notes template, but you can build and customize a template for your profession. You can build templates with a range of different fields. You can have tick boxes, drop downs, text boxes, body charts, whatever you need to take your notes. My subjective field is a text box, and I'm just going to add in some Latin as an example. Text boxes expand as you type, so there's no need to worry about having extra space. The chart field can be used for any visual annotations you may wish to take note of. I'm just going to set Bailey's example as a headache. You can also put the chart into full screen mode. This may be handy if you'd scanned and uploaded a pre-existing clinical note template from a physical piece of paper, or if you wanted to use a tablet and a stylus to record your clinical notes. I'm just going to go through and add in some other example information. One of the functions of the text fields is the ability to use snippets, which are predefined pieces of information you can quickly insert. These snippets can be triggered by typing exclamation mark into the text fields. If you take a little bit of time to set up your snippets, this will save you some time from having to type out this information in every consultation. Text boxes also have the ability to include symbols. These can be triggered by keyboard command or by clicking the mathematical pi symbol in the top right hand corner. When we're finished writing our clinical notes, we can save it as a draft, or we can finalize to lock it in. This will move our notes over to the right hand side history column, where they'll be locked in under a date and time. Now, because I didn't start these notes from the diary, they're not associated to the appointment. So let's go back to the diary, select the appointment, and start the clinical notes from there. I'm just going to make a copy of the notes we just wrote, just the same as if we were writing them for the first time, and across the top you'll see we now have a date and time of the appointment that's connected to these notes. And when we finalize it, we now have the date and time of the appointment at the top along with the service type, which tells us they were connected to the appointment. Under the edit button for each set of notes, we can change the date and time or booking it's connected to. We can move it to a different client or case if we've connected it to the wrong one, or we can even delete the record if we have the right permissions. Going back to the diary, we can now see a notes icon within the appointment. This makes it easy to check at the end of the day each appointment has its notes written. So let's take a quick look at the functionality to copy clinical notes. You may decide to base your notes for the current session on a previous version. You can use the copy to current notes button. This will copy the previous notes into the current notes. You can make any adjustments you need, and when you're ready to finalize, they'll be finalized for the current session. This will add the new notes to the history column, and you'll wind up with a full comprehensive history for your review. Next, we're going to write a letter to our referring doctor. Any letters we write are also shown in the document section on the right hand side of the clinical notes, along with any files and images we uploaded earlier. So let's go and send a letter to Dr. Davis. By clicking on the letters tab, we're then presented with a list of templates that we've set up. I'm going to select my doctor's letter template as the basis for writing my letter to Dr. Davis. The addressee drop-down includes any contact that's connected to this client or case, and I'm going to select Dr. Davis, our referrer. I'm then going to set my practitioner as the sender. Letter content is built using placeholders. You can see these in between the square brackets. This information gets replaced when you go to print or email the letter with the respective information to the client's profile or case. We can also bring our clinical notes into our letter by using the copy this section to letter button for each field. This can help us build a progress report for medical or legal correspondence. You can also include any image that you may have within that client's documents folder, such as those x-rays from before. When you save the letter, you'll see all the placeholders have been completed and we're ready to email or print the letter. When we go to email the document, the recipient's already there because we have the email address on file. We just go through, check all the other fields, and we're good to go. While we're here in clinical notes, it's worth noting that we can add one-off notes. This is so you can make an additional note that you may need a reminder for or may have forgotten about during the session. As an example, I'm going to make a note about this client's sensitivity. And like all other clinical notes, we have the option to pin this to the top of our history. This makes it easy to keep any important information at the front of your mind when you begin a consultation. Next on the left-hand menu is our client account section. This is where we can see that invoice from before, where we can bind 2 sessions onto one invoice. Simply click on an invoice to open it, then select one or more items. This will pop out the right-hand menu with a list of options to edit. You can make an adjustment or a refund to any item. You can delete items or add payments to specific items. I'm going to leave this invoice outstanding for the moment so I can show you how to pay off invoices in bulk. Next up on the left-hand menu, we can find the client's passes. I'll come back to this shortly when we talk about classes. After that, we can find a list of bookings for this client. We can select one or more, we can email them, we can print them, or we can manage them in bulk. Last up on the left-hand side, we have the client messages list. This includes any SMSs or emails we've sent in relation to this client. You can see here I've got the invoice and the letter that we sent earlier. So let's head back to our diary and we'll have a look at some class functionality. I'm just going to click on a blank spot and select class from the top of the pop-up. Already got the correct type selected, so I can say it's recurring. We can choose which days this class recurs, how many repetitions it needs. We can then check the availability. This will check the practitioners available on all these days. Then we can create the class. Same as booking clients for appointments, we search. If we don't already have the client available, we can create them right there and then. When adding clients to the class, we have the option to select a case. This is if you need to bill a third party or keep clinical notes. The same goes, we can select an alternative price or an alternative code for that third party too. We then select which recurrences this client's going to attend and we add them to the class. And just follow the same process for all participants within that class. When you have all your participants added to the class, you can select one or more. You'll have all the same options we have from our appointment management window to manage both status and their booking. Clients can pay for classes and services in a few different ways. They can pay for each service or class individually, or we can sell them a pass and they can make a redemption with each one of their visits for a set number of visits or for a set period of time. In my example, Taylor's going to purchase each individual session. That's really easy, same as an appointment. We simply raise an invoice for that class, fill out the appropriate payment methods, and Taylor can take the invoice away. But Bailey's going to purchase a pass and then make a redemption for the following sessions. So I'm going to open the class, select Bailey, and then choose Purchase Pass from the right-hand menu. This is going to take us to the invoicing screen where we're going to select a 5-session pass. Bailey's going to make this purchase on a debit card. This is essentially prepaying these 5 sessions ahead of time. Once we've saved the invoice, that first session is already redeemed, so Bailey will have 4 sessions remaining. This is because Bailey purchased the pass through the class. If we'd raised an invoice for the pass independently of the class, Bailey would have 5 sessions to use up in the future. So for example, let's get to raising invoices for the following week's class. Taylor's still outstanding as she's paying for each week separately, but when we click on Bailey, we can see he has a 5-session pass with 4 sessions remaining, so we can simply click on that redeem button, it'll redeem the pass, and Bailey's good to go. There's no need to raise an invoice because Bailey purchased the pass last week. We can also navigate through class recurrences using the toolbar at the top of the class window, and as we get to the 3rd recurrence, we can see that Bailey has 3 sessions remaining. So let's go back to our diary. We can talk a little bit about how we claim these redemptions from third-party payers. For the client to be able to claim their redemptions from a third-party payer, they'll need to be provided with an invoice and an attendance record. The invoice shows the total amount of money paid, and the attendance record shows where they attended each booking. So I've opened up the class, I've selected Bailey, and I'm just going to go to Client Details on the right-hand side menu, and then I'm going to navigate to the Passes item on the left-hand side menu. This takes us to the passes page we discussed before. Then simply select the pass in question and click Print or Email Attendance on the right-hand side menu. This will bring up our redemptions list, which when presented with an invoice means the client can claim these sessions from their third-party payer, such as public or private health insurance. Next, on the right-hand side of most pages, you'll notice there's a series of coloured tabs. This is our message center. That includes mail, tasks, notifications, waiting list, and in-app chat. From the top down, we start with the Mail tab. This is where you can send messages to your team. Next we have Tasks. This is where you can assign yourself or your teammates things to do. Following that is Notifications. Notifications are there to inform you about things like online bookings that have been made, issues sending emails where you may have the wrong address, or SMS replies from clients who may have responded to a reminder. It's just a list of things to review about your account. Next up is our waiting list. This is a list of clients waiting for an available spot within our diary. So let's go through and add a client to our waiting list. Same as booking an appointment, we search for the client first. Once we've selected our client, you can say that they need an appointment with a specific practitioner on a specific day, after a certain time, or even for a specific appointment type. Once you've got a client in the waiting list, you'll be able to quickly select them the next time you go to add an appointment. The final tab is our instant messaging and chat. This is where you can have a conversation with your colleagues under a chosen location, or you can have a private conversation with a particular teammate. Occasionally you may find you need to raise an ad hoc invoice. This may be for an existing client or for one who's walked in off the street. In the bottom left hand corner of your diary there's a button to generate ad hoc invoices quickly for these scenarios. And from there we can either search for an existing client or we can say that they're an ad hoc walk-in client. My example here may be that Bailey's returned after a consultation to make an additional purchase of a bit of stock or inventory. When we generate these invoices for existing clients, they can be found in the same invoice list as the ones for their appointments. Or if I generate an invoice for a non-returning walk-in client, they can be found under the Manage button of the top menu under the Invoices tool. I'll show you where that is very shortly. Continuing our journey across the top menu, we've been through clients, so it's time to look at contacts. I've got 2 contacts set up. My first one's our insurance company. They're set as a payer. That means that we can connect them to a case and we can send them an invoice. My second contact is my referring doctor, Dr. Davis. All we need to be aware of here is that we have a provider number set. This is so it helps for the referral on the third-party invoice. The best rule of thumb is that if you need to send an invoice or a piece of correspondence relating to a client, you'll need to set up that recipient as a contact. The same goes for any government or public health schemes, just set them up as a third-party payer. Next on our top menu we have reports. There are 3 reports you need to know about to get started with Nookal. The first 2 are banking and aging debts. The last one depends on how your clinic operates. It can either be activity or payments. To complete an end-of-day reconciliation, you need to use the banking report. Just make sure you're not using the payments report for the end-of-day reconciliation. The banking report is designed specifically for this task. When we generate a banking report for the day, we'll find all the transactions that we need to reconcile. And we just need to start with our summary table. We need to account for $802 in total. I'm going to start with $77 in the cash drawer. Check that I have $600 worth of debit card receipts and $50 worth of credit card. If any of those totals don't add up, I need to work my way through the details table, working through each transaction to make sure that I've got them all accounted for. Next up on our key list of reports, we have aging debts. Aging debts is a great way to monitor any outstanding debts that we need to keep an eye on. Just keep the default date range from 10 years ago till today, hit the generate button, and this will return a list of invoices grouped by client or contact that you need to monitor just to make sure that their debt doesn't get overdue and out of hand. As you can see here, we have Bailey's invoice from earlier that we raised for those 2 services. When it comes to calculating salaries, wages or commissions for yourself or your team, you'll be looking to use either the activity report or the payments report. The choice of which report is best for you depends at which stage in the billing process you pay yourself or your team. If you pay team members based on activity performed, regardless of receiving payment, you're looking for the activity report. As you can see in my example here, Piper has invoiced a total of $100 today, and Avery has invoiced a total of $625. The point to note about Avery is $50 worth of redemptions. This comes from one of the redemptions we made for the client Bailey earlier. Highlighted here with a red asterisk, this is to indicate that it's a nominal value. If you remember earlier, we invoiced Bailey $500 for the pass, and in this example, my pass is a nominal value of $50. We set nominal values to indicate the value we have on each session. This is so I can pay Avery a wage based on the individual redemptions instead of the original purchase of the pass. As this pass covers multiple sessions, and at the time of reporting, it may not have been fully redeemed, or its redemptions may be across multiple practitioners. By comparison, if you pay yourself or your team as final payment is received for the invoice, you'd be looking at using the payments report. This report will show you the payments received on any given date. It's worth noting that it doesn't show nominal values for passes and the original purchase, so it's typically used in smaller, new or sole trading clinics. The choice of which report is ultimately up to you. All I would remind you of is to not use the payments report for your end of day reconciliation. Instead, use the banking report. Next, we're going to take a quick look into reporting for performance, KPIs and metrics. Providers and practice report can be used to find a practitioner's average client spend, the client visit average, case visit average, and forward booking averages. The clinical notes report can be used to confirm that there are finalized clinical notes for each appointment on your diary. My example here has 3 appointments we need to review. Our occupancy report is based on the schedules we set up in our diary. Just looking at it for today, we can see that schedule we set up for Avery runs for 420 minutes. She's occupied for 285 minutes, which means the occupancy rate for today is 67%. Lastly, we have the business performance report. This can return you a range of metrics from bookings per case to lifetime value of clients through to utilization rate and sales per hour. The calculation for each metric is described in the hover, so you can just work your way through and decide what's best for your clinic. Back across the top menu, we have our manage area. This is where we can go and control different items for our clinic. In here, you'll find our invoicing tools where you can report on, download, and pay invoices in bulk. You'll also be able to find any ad hoc or walk-in invoices that you may have raised. Here, I've just generated a list of unpaid invoices for today, and we can see that invoice for Bailey that we raised earlier. We can also filter this list by the type of invoice, and that includes by the third-party insurers as payers as well. And what we can do is select one or more invoices. We have the option to pay all of those invoices in one transaction. This is helpful for when a third-party payer may have sent us a single payment for multiple invoices. All we need to do is select the appropriate invoices, click Pay Selected Invoices, and then add in a payment which will be divided across all of these invoices. These will then move from being unpaid to paid. Other administrative tools in this section include merging clients and printing out appointment lists. Under the clinical heading, we have the option to manage our case titles. This is where you can define a preset list. It makes it easier to track and report on your most common conditions. We can also upload body charts and set up templates for clinical notes. My example here is the template I used when we wrote some notes before. The left-hand side is where we set up and define our fields, and the right-hand side presents a preview of what we'll see when we write our notes. You can also upload your own custom body chart. These can then be used within the chart field of your clinical note template. Under the Manage heading, we also have the letter templates where we can build templates for letters, reports and correspondence. The doctor's letter we have here is the one I used before when we wrote a letter to Dr. Davis. I'm just going to make a quick adjustment to include some more information about the client's first appointment with us. Then I'll save it and it's all good to go for the next letter I need to write. The other clinical elements of the Manage area are plans and outcomes. These are provider management plans and outcome measures. You can select what's appropriate for your clinic. And lastly, we have snippets. These are what's used to write clinical notes a little bit faster. What you can see here is the text that I inserted quickly when we wrote clinical notes earlier. We can also set up appointment reminders and recalls, reminders being before an appointment, recalls being after. Both can be sent using SMS or email. SMSs invoke a cost using our SMS credits, and email is totally free. I'm just going to walk through now and set up an SMS appointment reminder. This is as simple as following the prompts about the message we want to send. My reminder's been set up for all services in all locations with all providers, and to send 1 day before their appointment. When we get to the content of the message, this is the same as the letter templates. We use placeholders to pull information from the client's profile or from their booking. We just want to keep an eye on the total number of characters that we use within our reminder content. Because every 160 characters costs us 1 SMS credit, I want to minimize the cost, keep it under 160 characters. Sometimes this means massaging the content of the text to get it to flow better. My example content here is a little bit long, so I'm just going to go through and abbreviate and shorten wherever I can. You are of course most welcome to make your message as long as you need or as short as you like. Once I've got my content in there, I'm going to click the save button. This is going to go into a message queue and be automatically sent for each appropriate appointment. Then return to the list of reminders. It's certainly possible you may want to set up a unique reminder for each service or for each practitioner. The same process works for recalls. They're simply sent after the appointment instead of before. You can also go through and set up templates for messages that you may want to send on an ad hoc basis, one-off emails or SMSs. The last part of our manager area is our data tools, where you can import and export data from your account. Going back to our top menu, we move across to setup. This is where you can find a list of items to action as you go to set up your account. Best plan is to work through each one as you go. As you can see here, I've gone to the Brisbane location. I can define an address, a phone number, upload a logo. All of the details here are what's used on your invoices and letterheads. Under the extras heading, we set up those fields that we had on our client profile before, the membership number and the drink preference. Referrers is a list of preset referrers that we can use to track the return on investment for our marketing endeavours. They appear in the drop down when creating a new appointment or on the left side of the client's case screen. Discounts is where we define a preset list of discounts that we can use when we're invoicing our clients. Services, classes, inventory, passes is where we can define the items we bill our clients for. Services is where we can define the billing code, the name, the colour, the duration and the price of each service. Classes are very much the same as services, except they include a number of participants for each class, and you can also set third-party pricing and codes for your invoicing. Inventory is where you can control the stock for each location with minimum quantities and stock price. There's also the ability to update quantities in bulk using the stock take feature in the bottom right hand corner. Under passes, we have the passes that we can use for redemptions for services and classes. 10 session pass I have set up here has a price of $1,000 with a nominal value of $100. You'll typically set a nominal value equal to the price divided by the number of sessions. You may decide to vary this if you're running a special promotion, but typically the nominal value is what you value the individual session for that pass at. Lastly, we have events. This is where you can control the categories for different events on your diary. You can define what colour these different categories appear in, whether they count towards your professional development or whether they reduce your schedule for your occupancy reporting. Next up, we have our staff and permissions. This is where you can go to add new users to your account. Whether they are administrative staff or providers, they'll both appear in this list. Whenever you need to add a new staff member, just work through each one of these fields for their profile. Whether you need to set any provider numbers, what access they have, you can control what permissions group they belong to. Following that, in our setup area, we have the permissions list itself. Although it can be a bit daunting to look at first glance, it's simply a table of what each user group can perform within your account. Each option goes between 3 different modes: edit, view and no access. No access means they cannot see the area, view means that they can see it but cannot change it, and edit means that they can make changes. You can define new groups. You may find there might be a use case for adding a new group such as your accountant. They may require access to single things such as financials but nothing else. Next up, we have a subscription section. This is where you can control the billing details for your account and you can purchase more SMS credits. Next up, we have our online bookings and client forms. These are a little bit too advanced for this particular video, but I'll show you how to get more information on them in just a tick. Lastly, we have our integrations. This is where you can go and control the third-party integrations that you may choose to hook up to your Nookal account. This is a range of different integrations that include financial, clinical and online functionality that you may wish to add to your account. Finally, if you ever need help or more information, our support team is only one click away. The help button in the top right hand corner will take you through to a help center. This is where you'll be able to find more information on any feature we have, such as those online bookings and client forms we spoke about. And if you ever need a quick answer or a bit of information, you can find our live chat, our friendly support team in the bottom right hand corner. You can also email us anytime at support@nookal.com and we'll get back to you as quickly as we can. Thanks for taking the time to look through Nookal with me. I'll see you again soon.